Janelle, I'm so excited to have you here. It has been in the makings to have you on this podcast. And because we have to talk about something really important, which is our bodies, our vaginas. Yes, we're going to be talking about that today because it's important. And you are one of the women to talk to about this. So thank you for being on the podcast today with us.
Absolutely, Kelley. I am excited, honored. I almost want to like pinch myself because there are a few podcasts where I'm just like, I love this podcast. It's therapeutic. It's a movement, and your podcast is top of mind when I think of a movement, change, and really challenging Black women and people to embrace joy and freedom and literally choosing to walk away from hardship and not just stay stuck in it. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me. And I cannot wait to get into this conversation.
I know we were having this conversation for y'all off camera and off audio recording. We were already like vibing. We're like, yeah, let's talk about that. We got to do that. We got to go here. So we are absolutely jumping right in. And
Yes.
I think the best place to start, I'm trying to think like where to start because we started so many different places, is to talk about what led you to the work that you do and what are some of the myths or struggles that you see, and we'll talk about Black women because that's our audience today, that you see Black women dealing with. So what led you to the work, and then what do you observe in the work, common myths and themes that you see with the people who come and meet with you?
Absolutely. So, what led me to the work was honestly mystery. When I finished physical therapy school, I went to get my doctorate in physical therapy in California at a school called University of the Pacific. And I was the only Black person in my class. Um, Came out of school and went straight into orthopedic physical therapy. Most of us know what that is, like, oh, I sprained my ankle running, or I have a lot of low back pain and my doctor has referred I go see a physical therapist. So I did that for about 2 years traveling around the country. But I got an assignment for a clinic treating women who have incontinence. And so that's any loss of urine that's coming out without your permission. So unless you're giving your bladder permission to release urine, that's incontinence, whether it's a little bit or a lot, whether you had a baby, didn't have a baby, whether you're 60 or 20. So that's what I did for 3 months for this contract. And when I got there, I was like, wow, like I like this way more than I thought. They trained me right there on the job. And so I ended up extending that contract for a year when I was only supposed to be there for 3 months. And
Wow.
at that point, I was like, wow, I really feel fulfilled. I feel joy, right? Helping women overcome such an intimate region that they initially felt was like something they just had to struggle with, something that they didn't have solutions for. And so I came to Chicago and specialized at Loyola. So now that's all I do. I have since specialized more in sexual pain and vaginismus, which is a condition that can prevent penetration from happening altogether. Um, but what I see with Black women, because I'm sure you want me to go there, right?
Yes.
What I see with Black women, woo, one of the first things I see is honestly just the way in which we describe discomfort in our bodies. It's almost as if we feel that we're not strong if we say I have pain.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
one of the things that is really common is something called vulvodynia. And this is where the outside of the vaginal opening is burning, stinging. There could be pain on the clitoris. It could be itching. Everything is outside. So not necessarily indoors, but right at the opening. And as you can imagine, if you're trying to have intercourse or even put in a tampon or even wear pants like jeans, just wearing jeans is causing this like burning, stinging feeling.
Yes.
And when I talk to white women, they say it burns and it stings. When I talk to Black women that have the same exact issue, they say there's discomfort. It's the same issue. And so I've started to like double ask people, like, are you feeling pain? And when I double ask them, they say, yes, it's pain. Wow. So that's the very first thing, because when we're going to talk to doctors, the way in which we describe our experience matters. If you say this is uncomfortable versus this is burning and stinging me on it, right, then they're going to sort of probably probably take that a little bit more seriously. And they don't even take us serious to begin with. We're not listened
Right.
to in medical care. But that's one thing. And then the other thing that I see is that Black women, at least in my experience, tend to hold more tension in their bodies. So certain conditions of pelvic floor dysfunction are more common with us. One of them is frequent urination. And then also just the idea that it's supposed to be real tight. I feel that that's a cultural thing as well. Not that it's just Black women that believe this,
Right.
but that could be taught to us by our auntie, by she told you to just be Kegelen all the time. You got to keep it tight for so and so. That those are some things that I see in our community that I would love for us to opt out of, in terms of what we're expecting from our bodies. It's essentially, it's like we're normalizing tension in our bodies, which is dysfunctional.
Which is amazing. I mean, just even listening to you, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense with what is common with the Black community. And even like in my own personal self, when you talk about being tense all the time and like how that means you have to go to the bathroom all the time, like, oh, wait a
Right.
minute, wait a minute here. Let me not tell all my business today. Anyway, but I'm like, wait a minute. And I think that comes to the next part, which is not knowing what's normal. Like there is so much for women in general, and then even it's a common for all women to not know what's normal. But then
Right.
there's this whole other layer, like you're saying, as Black women, that we don't even know what is normal because we're believing lies and narratives, and then we're just also not expressing our
Mhm.
pain. Like if you don't know what you just described as that burning and the tingling, if you don't know that's not normal and that's not something you need to tolerate, you're
Absolutely.
not going to do anything about it. So what do you think, how do you help women come to understand what is their normal and what is normal and abnormal pelvic floor functioning?
Absolutely. A lot of it is unlearning. We've been told that sex is supposed to be painful on your first time.
Yes,
Um,
that's true.
we've been told that if you don't orgasm, oh, it's just part of being a woman. It's fine. Like men orgasm, we may or may not get there. We've been told a lot of things that are actually like, hey, no, we've been told that our periods are normally painful. That
Yeah.
is not supposed to be a painful thing. Now, will it be uncomfortable? Will you have some mild pain? Probably so. But there are people that have normalized suffering. So first, it's like I like to infuse just relevance and try to make it a little bit more entertaining because it is a serious subject, but
Right.
it's also so common that it's like I want to normalize not the pain and dysfunction, but normalize the experience. Like you're not alone in this. This is
Yes.
actually really common. So normalizing the conversation is a big thing for me, on social media and with my community. And then also just describing it like, hey, we should be able to go 2 to 3 hours without peeing. You should be able to jump, laugh, sneeze, all of that without peeing. Sometimes we
Yes.
just need to know like what is not normal
Normal.
and what is. And I don't care if you're 60 or 16. Pelvic floor health is pelvic floor health, and it doesn't necessarily just go into the trash when you hit a certain age. There are some things that we can do to preserve it and nurture, our bodies. So conversation, honestly, I think is a big thing, and talking about it with people you trust. Um, it's sad. I meet people all the time who are like, I've been married for 5 years. I've never been able to have intercourse with my husband, but I've also never told my parents. I've also never told my friends. There's a lot of shame. And so
Yeah.
we feel broken or we feel defective sharing it with people around us because people are only bragging about everything that goes right. No one goes around really sharing the dysfunction. So you feel so broken, and then that prolongs your time to the solution because you're not telling anyone. So the conversation is such a big piece.
All of that. You should, for those of you listening and not watching, you should have seen me when Janelle was talking about it's not normal to be suffering in your period and praying during your period, because the amount of people that, one, as a community. So I would also just caveat, talk to your friends, but talk to people who know what they're talking about, because the
That
amount
too.
there, because
That too. Yes, definitely talk to
women.
people who are like equipped. But even in the group chat, like we don't just want to know like, oh, you had sex with so and so and it was amazing. why aren't we sharing, like, I had sex and it was not that great? Because even in the social sphere, there's dysfunction there in terms of the communication. We're not
Yes.
being real about what we're going through.
At all. And
And
normalizing
so,
things that shouldn't be. Like, not only
right.
we're not being real, but we're also normalizing on the other end of the spectrum. We're talking about like your cycle. We're normalizing that you should be crawling on the floor. Like, girl, yeah, that's it. I was there last
Right.
month. Like, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And
We're
so
making
nobody's getting
TikToks
help.
about it and reels like,
Right.
Shannon almost died on my period. Like, this,
But
that
we're
is
not,
not
and then no one's getting help. Like, while that is happening, right? No one is saying, oh, I should go to the OBGYN.
right.
You know, it's painful during intercourse for me. I should go to the OBGYN or a pelvic floor doctor. I should go to someone who knows what they're talking about on these things, because it's not, I should go to my OBGYN because I'm having really heavy flow in my period and I'm
Right.
crawling on the floor. That's not normal, because we sit around in some ways and we've normalized pain, we've normalized dysfunction. And more importantly, I think the other place is this, we're so disconnected from our bodies
Oh my
in
gosh.
every way. And of course, if we're disconnected from our shoulders,
Yeah.
right? And we don't even know what's going on in our shoulders, you can best believe we're disconnected from our vaginas and our
Oh my
vulvas. Like, we're
gosh. Oh my
just
gosh.
disconnected.
And we don't understand that, like, the pelvis can hold tension like every other part of the body.
Yes.
For every other part of the body, I've noticed that we know a tight neck is dysfunctional. We know that your back feeling tight is dysfunctional. You having cramps in your foot is dysfunctional. But as soon as we talk about the vagina, we're like, how do we keep it tight? How do we keep it? And it's just like, that's why you're peeing on yourself, because your muscles are not able to contract
Yes.
and relax.
Yes.
They are not
Yes.
able to contract. So it's an educational thing, but then it's also like being disconnected. And also, I think, Kelley, that especially as Black women, because we have to grind more, we have to work
Yes.
harder, we have to do more to get seen and to be appreciated. We're underpaid, so we are doing more, right? So our bodies are going to hold more tension. But then also, when we do get a message from our body, I think we're used to muting the messages.
Yes.
Like, I even today myself, when I'm sitting for more than 1 to 2 hours at a time, I start to feel like tension in my pelvis. Like my butt starts to feel a little bit sore.
Yeah.
Instead of me getting up and because no one is, I don't do work where if you don't talk to me immediately, you go to the emergency room. I'm not in that type of work. So no one is going to die if I go and stand up or go stretch for 5 to 10 minutes. But if I've normalized this constant grind, keep working, keep going, keep replying to emails, we're not used to listening to our bodies. So even when we do get the signs of dysfunction, we just say, you know what? I'll respond at a later time. And then we never end up responding.
Never. Or until we are in the ER, or
Right.
until we have something or we have, a cyst that bursts if it's your
Yes.
cycle,
Oh my
or,
God.
until a relationship
It's
dissolves
fibroids.
because
Now we know it's fibroids or
exactly, or a marriage dissolves
right.
because you cannot be intimacy, or a partnership dissolves because you can no longer be
Yes.
intimate and the relationship cannot sustain having
Right.
no intimacy in there. So we wait till there is, a 5 alarm fire before
Right.
we mute it and say a later date, and then the later date comes and it can be too late for a relationship. It can be too late for ourselves physically. I mean, we don't even need to go there with what's been
Right.
talked about with how people may let things go, and then by the time they go to the doctor, they're hearing the worst possible news instead
Mhm.
of,
Right.
actually, this is early stages, we could fix that. And so, really, this is why I wanted to have this conversation. And I want us to move now into talking about how we kind of start to remedy some of these things, and talking about non-sexual intimacy, because it starts without the sex, and then we
Yes.
move to that, right? And how to really connect with your body in a
Yeah.
meaningful way. So more to come with Dr. Janelle Howell. As you know, we're already off to a fantastic
Yeah.
start of this
Yeah.
conversation. We'll be back. We're going to keep talking about how to then deal with the things we've been avoiding or been putting off. So more to come.